listen to them, children of the night. What music they make.
What's up, creeps?
Bridgestone! Welcome to an episode you can really sink your teeth into. Our brain stew. Top 10 vampire movies for your listening
One vampire
pleasure.
movie.
Two
vampire movies.
Look at us here, me and B-Ratty popping in the episode with the cornball lines, some dad jokes, all about that shit. My name is Justin.
I'm Brady.
/ the B-Ratty. And
B-Ratty. We're working on getting that Twitter verified,
at
a couple
the
more years.
Because you don't want to be bratty. That's what you said a few weeks ago.
No, we're not bratty. We're B-Ratty.
And ladies and gentlemen, you will hear an absence, if you will, of a certain member of Brain Stew. This week, Jeremy is not on the show. He is on one of his, as we call them, mysterious adventures. So it's just myself and the B-Ratty taking a bite out of this one. But he'll be back next week for sure. He wanted to be here, but the guy's busy. He's probably going to be doing some crazy shit that he'll want to talk about on the show anyways. So you guys will get to hear it, and it'll be fantastic. But, so yes, Bratty, that's right. Vampire movies. I know that you're a huge fan of vampire movies, and considering the fact that we are definitely not covering fucking Morbius on the show this week, people are talking about vampire movies again, and it was a perfect time for us to sit down and really count down our favorites. There's a lot of great vampire movies. There's a lot of bad ones. So this list was actually really difficult to come up with. I don't know how you approached it.
It was hard, man. I gotta admit, I'm more into werewolf lore and mythos, but vampires are right up there too. It starts with 1931's Dracula and just kind of goes from there. I approached this with what are my most enjoyable vampire films. So like if somebody were to come up to me and ask me where to start with vampire films and I wanted them to get hooked on it, these are the films that I would give them. And so that's kind of the way I approached it. Like, what's fun to watch? What's rewatchable? What do when I pop on Netflix or whatever streaming channel I have, like, what am I going to fucking put on for
Listen
a
to
vampire
this guy.
film?
Fucking millennials or whatever the fuck you are. It's like, when I go on a streaming service, I'm sitting over here going like, when I pull out my DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K Ultra HD, or for most of our listeners, they're like, what the fuck are both of you talking about? I'm going to my VHS collection for this shit.
Hell yeah,
it's
brother.
generational, I promise.
VHS.
No offense to anybody. Listen, I love VHS. I got a couple still left, but...
I gotta say, if any of our listeners are still watching VHS, actually, there wouldn't be any listeners. Why would they be listening to a fucking podcast if they have VHS tapes?
We should just record the podcast at really shitty quality and then put it on the cassette tapes and just mail it to people. There you go. Listen to it on your tape player. It'll be the equivalent of watching a horror movie on VHS. But I love that VHS.
Oh, you don't have an 8-track? I guess you can't be a patron.
But before we get started into the countdown, I just wanted to take the time to thank those of you that were a part of our Scream contest that we did over our social media over the weekend. We are giving away a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of the movie. And we got quite a few really good reviews. And I wanted to read at least one or two of them here on the air. So I'm going to grab them for you. And I think this one is awesome from FJ Reactions. Review for channel. I love these guys so much. Their reviews on films are always so articulate. That's in bold letters. So awesome that we're that articulate. Who fucking knew?
We're
Who
fancy.
fucking knew? They always make sure to get down every detail possible of each film they're reviewing while also having fun with their audience. Extremely interactive and very enthusiastic guys. Great job and keep up the good work. Thanks so much, FJ Reactions, for the review. That's fucking rad, dude.
Yeah.
The next one is
That's really
probably
awesome.
my
Thank you.
favorite of the few that we got from Nerp Derp. The title is Horror Extraordinaire.
What a name.
This should be your go-to podcast for horror. They are extremely entertaining and funny while making horror a fun experience for a talking point. Give them a listen. This is the movie podcast your mother warned you about. They actually know our slogan, so fuck yeah. Points for that, too. All right, and from let's see here. Sunday, excuse me, rather. This was our contest winner, actually, The World of RSB. I'm not really into podcasts, but I've been listening to this, and I like it a lot. I love their sense of humor, and it makes me laugh, which I very much appreciate. I'm officially a fan. Well, thanks so much for being a fan. So much so, Robert Scott Bean, you won our contest. So I'll be sending out your 4K Ultra HD of the new Scream, which has a sticker on it that reminds you that it is the new movie and not the original. It actually says all new movie in really big bold letters, just in case you were stupid enough to look at it and be like, oh, this isn't the same as... No, listen, the characters from the movie are on the cover, but I get it. It's a marketing thing. I know Jeremy and I were texting back and forth about it, making fun of it, and I'm like, I get it. I get why they named it Scream. I also get why they put a sticker on it. It is what it is. Actually,
Justin is really going to be sending out his bootleg copy of the original Scream from 1996, and he's just going to slap that sticker on it. So
I do have Scream on VHS, actually. I'm going to send you that. There you go.
Oh, there we go. It comes full circle.
But yes, our winner was actually very thankful, very appreciative, really excited about it, and that always makes it worth it for us, and it's a fun way, Brady, for us to give back to them while they're showing us some love, because we love y'all guys so much. Seriously, all the support and the listeners every single week. And if you do like what you're hearing, seriously, it helps so much for us to reach more rad horror fans like yourselves. Spotify is the easiest. You just got to go on there and give us stars. You don't even have to say anything. But iTunes means so much, helps us build up the charts. So if you get an opportunity, leave us a review. Seriously. Like, it means so much to us. But enough of my stammering on. I'm ready to talk about blood, biting the neck, and those vampires. Brady, you ready for this shit?
Let's do it.
Let's bite into the throat of this motherfucker. All right, man. So we're going to start with our number 10, and I'm going to throw it to you first. Youngins first.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that one coming.
Do that, and I'm going to see what you got, baby.
All right. Number 10 for me is a little film from 1993. Guillermo del Toro.
Oh,
ringing any bells?
Kronos. Yeah.
Kronos.
I knew you were going with that.
I really, really, really love this movie. In my travels across vampire movies, I found that I really like them when they're not overtly vampire movies as well, when you kind of have to guess at what it is a little bit. And I think that with this movie, it's probably my favorite Del Toro movie.
Wow, those are some strong words right there.
I think this is the movie that you can just look at and you can already get a glimpse of everything he is as a director and everything he's going to do. Like, sure, he gets bigger budgets and he can make better looking movies, but the gore's there, the effects are there, the great storylines there.
Yeah, his love of horror, in terms of him being the gigantic horror fan that he is, and it being such a huge influence on him as a filmmaker, is definitely present at the forefront in Kronos.
Mm-hmm. And for listeners who haven't seen this, maybe don't know it, it's basically set in a present-day Mexico. We have a protagonist, Jesus, played by Federico Lupi. He owns his own antique shop, kind of living a ho-hum life, I guess you could say. A couple shadowy figures come in, start to take interest in a certain statue among his wares, and then we get a great appearance from Ron Perlman, and who would then go on to be, fucking Hellboy. And then he gets bit by this scarab, whatever you want to call it, and it turns him into this vampire of sorts to get immortal life. It's fucking great. Like, you see his suffering, but you see, like, he doesn't want to give it up. Like, if something fucking bit me and turned me into a vampire, I wouldn't want to give it up either. That's my number 10.
The best part about it. I'm like, that's always the hard time I have with vampires bitching about being vampires. I'm like, no, like, listen, that's why I love the What We Do in the Shadows show so much, is because as much as they complain about it, they still seem like they enjoy it after thousands of years of being a vampire. It's,
that reminds me, I know I was talking to you about it yesterday, but I was just walking around aimlessly because my wife got a flat tire, and so she had my car for the day. And I was like, well, I'm just going to walk around the city because we moved to Worcester, and there's a ton of breweries up here. Worcester, bless you. And there's this one called Wormtown, and I don't know if you've had any beer from there, but they seem to be pretty popular.
I ain't heard of that.
And Also, did you know that the Walmart smile, like their emblem, the yellow smile, actually came from Worcester and was stolen? And there's a, like, if you mention it up here, it's a big fucking thing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Listen,
yeah, anyways. But I went and got this beer. It was a New England IPA, and it was called Vampires Don't Do Dishes from What We Do in the Shadows. So I thought that was pretty fitting for this episode. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyways, what's your
my number 10? Oh, so this is a film from 2014 that I came upon randomly. I don't recall anyone really talking about it at the time. It was just very unheard of. It's a black and white American Persian language horror Western vampire film. It is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This movie
great film.
Just really fucking resonated with me right from the get-go. Totally inventive and original take on a vampire movie. I just found it really beautiful. The black and white obviously is just a great aesthetic for vampire movies. It's where they started. So it was great to see a return to form in terms of visual. And it follows a girl. The girl, that's what her name is. That's the name of the character. Played wonderfully by Sheila Vand. And this film was directed by a woman as well, Annie Lily Amirpour. I'm sure that I butchered that, but yes, this movie, I had to put it on here as I sat down to do this list. I'm like, what vampire movies do I love? Do I think deserve to be on a list? And also that really hit me in a certain way. And you're going to see a large amount of variety in terms of my picks, because I think that the vampire genre is so vast. And there's so much there to like and love. There's also so much to shit on and hate, because there's a lot of bad vampire movies. Yeah. But I mean, this one here is definitely like, it's on the more art house scale, if you will, but it's just beautiful. And it deals with crime and poverty in a weird way. And just very, very beautiful film. So yeah, my number 10 is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. If you haven't seen it, out of my entire list, it's probably the one that I recommend the most in terms of if you haven't seen it. But
yeah, that's a really, really good one.
So moving on for your number 9.
The 9th vampire movie. So for me, I had to go, number 9 was 1996's From Dusk Till Dawn by
criminally
Robert
low.
Rodriguez.
That is extremely low, Brady.
But that's the thing we're talking about. There's so many fucking vampire movies, and like I said, I came with this list. Like, here are the 10 movies you should watch in order if you want to like really be into vampires.
I feel like getting sober on the show, just getting to your head. Go grab some alcohol. Go pound it or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna go get some more vampire.
There it is,
dishes. Man. But I mean, for anybody who's seen this, you know the plot. But I love that for the first act of the movie, it's just a heist movie, right? So you just think that you're getting that grindhouse vibe, that Tarantino vibe. I mean, he wrote the screenplay, so like his influence is all over it with Rodriguez. And then it just fucking flips, and it becomes this weird vampire movie that when I saw it, I had never seen vampires done this way, and it just hooked me. And let's also talk about Salma Hayek. Like, she's fucking hot in this.
Absolutely stunner in this.
Yeah, like I would let her turn me into a vampire any day of the week. I love it, man, and it's it's funny in that Quentin Tarantino kind of schlocky way, And I think the makeup effects are great. I think that the vampires are terrifying.
100%.
So that's my number.
That movie, I'm sure we'll be talking about it again much later on, because I have good taste. Just saying. It's good to see it on your list, though, young man. It makes me feel
Thanks
good.
For that afterthought.
But
what's your fucking
all
number
right?
9,
I'll get to it. All right, sorry. I'm old and I forget things. I need to look at my notes.
Probably don't even know what a vampire is.
I am
asshole.
No, so my number 9 is something that came from my childhood. I used to watch this one all the time. Did not own it, but it used to be on HBO like randomly in the summer. It comes from 1985. It's directed by Howard Storm. It's another coming-of-age vampire flick, and it stars Jim Carrey from 1985. Once Bitten. Have you ever seen this one, Brady?
I have not. I've seen like the artwork for it, but I've never actually seen it.
You've probably seen the image too of him with like the black trench coat, his hair slicked back, and the black wafer or the Ray-Ban sunglasses. This was his first major lead role, playing the character of Mark Kendall, an innocent and naive high school student who is seduced in a Hollywood nightclub by a sultry blonde countess played by Lauren Hutton, who unknown to him is a centuries-old vampire who like bangs young dudes that she meets at the club. I mean, it sounds like the thing to be doing in the 80s. I feel like vampires in the 80s literally would be living it the fuck up because people were dumb. I mean, we know how many people got AIDS in the 80s. I'm just saying people were just like, yeah, bite my dick, man, bite my neck, bite whatever you want. But no, it's like, it's interesting to go back and watch this movie, you know, because when I saw it as a kid, I already knew who Jim Carrey was. So I was like, oh, he's like a kid in this movie. This was the beginning of him trying to become something. This is, you know, even before, you know, Earth Girls Are Easy. And the movie bombed. It didn't do well, but it's a huge cult classic. And, you know, for me at least, I always looked up to the Jim Carrey character in the movie. Number one, you know he got laid by this hot-ass MILF, right? And then later on, my favorite scene is him as a vampire. He's a vampire already. Dressed as a vampire. Like, he's just dressed up as a goth, but he looks like a vampire, so he's getting complimented on his outfit for being a vampire. He's just like, oh, this is just like what I'm wearing for the school dance. So as a kid, I just wanted to be like him so bad. It was the essence of cool evil, if you know what I'm talking about. So this movie is, and also in terms of diversity for this list, it's fun. It's comedic. It's also like just it has a little bit of an edge of the teen sex films from the early 80s that I love so much. They're really adolescent, slightly raunchy. It doesn't quite get there, but it's almost there. And it's got Jim Carrey, and he's fucking great in it. So, vampire in high school, for sure. Getting laid. Fucking awesome, right? Dealing with girl issues and vampire issues. So that's my number 9.
All right, so number 8 for me. Justin, you know this. I think I've mentioned it a couple times. I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Who you're talking about. I don't even know that you like that person.
So, I mean, I know, luckily I'm going to talk about him while Jeremy's not on this podcast right now because he fucking hates Stephen King, which I'm sure we'll get into
when
after
he just
he listens
hears
to this.
the name, his eyes go bloodshot, and he gets beat red in the face and he trembles.
Oh, it's so bad. Every time that I'll text him about like a Stephen King thing or this or that, he's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but fuck that guy. Or, oh yeah, that's a really good movie, but fuck that guy. It's like everything has to have fuck Stephen King. I
forgot which episode he told the story on, but I'm pretty sure he already told the story.
Oh, so everybody knows already.
Most of our lists, but I want him to bring it up every opportunity he gets because he tells it with such passion and such fury.
He's like somebody telling like the one that got away story, like the fish story. He just gets into it and you're like, all right, dude, calm down. It's like
unlike those that are disappointed from that experience, he's hateful and angry and really bitter.
Most people would be like, oh,
to the point that this motherfucker
approach this guy who writes about this stuff.
And I love that we're giving heat to our other co-host who's not here to defend himself, but he would wear a fuck Stephen King shirt.
The best time to do it.
Stephen King rule shirt or whatever the hell it is from the Monster Squad. He'd be wearing Stephen King fuck him shirt. So
Stephen King.
There it is.
That's what
that's even better.
But for my number 8. I have to go with an adaptation of one of his short stories that a lot of people I don't think have seen because it's very hard to come by, but it's The Night Flyer.
Have you seen this? I've seen it once. I just remember the artwork of the really creepy fucking creature with like the cape and shit.
Yeah. But basically it's a story that follows a tabloid writer who investigates a serial killer who flies into rural airstrips and then goes on a killing spree. So already pretty good fucking plot. There's plenty of blood for fans of Stephen King. There's plenty of King humor that pops up. It's also, a Stephen King adaptation, so it's going to be a little cheesy at parts. But there's one scene in particular in the bathroom, and Justin, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where it's just terrifying and gory and like an oh shit kind of moment. I can't recommend this one enough to people. It gets overshadowed a lot by Salem's Lot because that's like the King vampire story. But if you can find it, I would definitely check this one out because it's really fucking good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the only time I've seen it all the way through. It was on streaming somewhere. So I'm like you. I'm like all those millennials who would just stream shit. That's where I found it.
Yeah, it's one of the only movies of Stephen King's that he liked how they ended it better than how he ended
okay,
the
so
story.
it's one of those. Interesting.
He said up there is also like The Mist by Darabont.
Do you know who directed this one? Or by any chance? Anyone notable? I'm just curious if it was anyone, because it's always interesting to see like how...
Watch it probably be Mick Garris.
It's not Mick Garris. He didn't do that one.
It's Mark Pavia.
All right. I was just curious. It's interesting because you know that like the plethora of horror directors have all taken their stab at Stephen King stuff. So always...
I will say, going off on a bunny trail here, I do think that Mike Flanagan has probably done the best job at adapting Stephen King.
Oh, hands down. I mean, depending on, how you look at it, I guess.
Well, I think he's got his own stuff. Like, you can talk about Midnight Mass being like Salem Lot light, but when you look at what he did with Gerald's Game, and like when that got first announced, I was like, how is he going to make a compelling story or movie out of this story? Because to me, the story wasn't all that interesting. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my fucking God. Like, it's like he has a direct line into Stephen King's brain.
And it's very rare for a filmmaker to have that. For more Stephen King, listen to Hell to the King, Brady's other podcast.
Yeah. My Hell to the King podcast with my wife and my friend Kenneth. It's great. We're going through The Stand right now and it fucking sucks.
Oh, anyways. I like The Stand, but the new one or the old one?
Well,
we're
the
doing
book.
That's right. I forgot you do the book.
Yeah.
Because you're all... all right.
Yeah, anyways, we don't have to get into The Stand because there's no vampires. There's just a wizard. Justin, what's your number 8?
This is... there you go. I was waiting for the... this is The Originator, the granddaddy. The movie that really set the tone for everything that came after it, and the movie that made Bela Lugosi into a horror star. It is Dracula from 1931, in the American pre-code supernatural horror film, directed and co-produced by Todd Browning. I feel like obviously you have to, approach the elephant in the room. While it's slow, but modern standards, it's slow. Regardless of that, Lugosi's undeniable charm as Count Dracula just oozes all over the screen. I would say without him, this movie really isn't anything. He sweeps across the screen with this like really strange movement that it's like otherworldly at times. And his eyes, it's just, he's sexy in an old school way, in a 1930s way.
Like classically sexy.
It's just an absolutely perfect performance, and it's the movie that really set the bar for, after this we got Frankenstein, we got the Wolfman, we got all the Universal horror movies, and it's all thanks to this one. And I know a lot of people credit Nosferatu, which rightly so, you absolutely have to credit that one as, it's a fucking silent movie, it's beautifully done, but I think Dracula is the one that most people remember, and the one that really did the most for the genre and of horror in general. We wouldn't have horror the way we have now without this movie. And I think that in terms of that, it doesn't get nearly enough credit. And some might be on here going, well, you're preaching to the choir. Why the fuck is it so high up on your list? Well, because there's a lot of Dracula movies. And I think it's just a preference thing. I think this movie, I enjoy it. Do I like it more than Frankenstein? No. Do I like it more than the Wolfman? Fuck no. And do I like it better than Creature from the Black Lagoon? Definitely not. All of those movies I like better as movies than I do this one. But Bela Lugosi as Dracula is still, in my mind, when I think Dracula, he usually is the image that pops up in my head. So is Lugosi a better Dracula than Lee, or is Lee better than Lugosi? That's a really interesting and difficult question, and I'm not sure I'm ready to answer that right now. If I had to go from just preference right off the bat, I'd say Lugosi. Right off the bat,
Okay.
I like Christopher Lee.
Leave it at that.
He's really great. Different eras, different interpretations, different approaches to the character, even though they're slightly similar. So,
for sure. All right.
On to you for your number 7.
Number 7 for me. We're getting a little more modern than I have been. We're going to 2007. And we're going to go to a Sam Raimi produced film starring Josh Hartnett,
Wow.
Houston.
Okay. I
Ben
wasn't
Foster,
sure if this was
Melissa
going to show up
George.
on your list or not.
30 Days of Night. And what really gets me going about this movie is one, Josh Hartnett, because this is like his
Does he make
peak.
you that horny in this movie? Really?
Not as horny as Ben Affleck did, but when they were in Pearl Harbor together,
Yeah.
But I, much like From Dusk Till Dawn, it's a different take on vampires that I really hadn't seen before. So you already get the great setting of it's an Alaskan town that's going to be dark for 30 days, right? And then you have not just a vampire spreading through, but a gang of vicious
The most
vampires.
vicious vampires, I would say.
Oh,
ever.
dude, when they're fucking sprinting, Danny Houston as a vampire is terrifying. Like, Danny Houston in general is terrifying, but as a vampire, even more so. And that shot when it's overhead of the town just getting
That's one of my... I love that. The blood...
vampires.
And having it be in Alaska with the snow, and I'm pretty sure this is based on a graphic novel. Am I correct in that? So...
Yeah.
But the visual of the blood on the snow, the white, hadn't been done in a movie that way. It's just absolutely beautiful to look at. This one I saw opening night in theaters and walked out really a big fan of it. I own it on Blu-ray. It doesn't get talked about all that much, but I love Josh Hartnett, and I'm waiting for a Hartnett-assance, man. I want him to get back out in the limelight, you know?
I don't think it's going to
He's
happen,
in the new
man.
Christopher
He's
Nolan
been
movie,
doing
so...
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't look that great. Like, not the Christopher Nolan movie. He's done a couple other movies before that I'm kind of like, he's trying to get back into the spotlight. I just think he's been gone for so long, man. I mean, he did Penny Dreadful. He's done a couple independent films that have been decent. I just don't think he's
got the chops, man.
I don't know if he's
I just
up to
think
it.
if he does, he needs to bring back that hair from The Faculty in H2O. He's got that horror pedigree, man. He should be in some new good horror movies. That's really what he needs to do.
And he's got to come out and be like, Michael Myers.
He's dead. You're in.
But that's number 7 for me. What about you?
Fuck vampires. Let's just turn this into a Hartnett podcast. A love-a-thon.
All right, real quick. Side note: if you had to pick top 3 Hartnett movies, not top 5 because I already know what.
Are we really
2 of
doing
those
this
are.
right now?
Yeah, just do it right now.
For me, right off the bat.
Yeah.
H2O. Number 2, Sin City. 3, The Faculty. And after that, I'm coming up with a blank right after that.
Yeah, I got to go. Number 1's Black Hawk Down. I fucking love that movie.
I haven't seen that in years.
Number 2 is, I just watched it the other week again. Number 2 is H2O. And then number 3 is, I always get the name wrong, 40 Days and 40 Nights, where he like swears off sex for 40 days. It's like the romantic comedy, and he like finds the love of his life in that time. How dare
you? We're a horror podcast. How dare you admit that you like romantic comedies?
I'm going to go out right now and say I love romantic comedies, okay?
Okay, I know who I'm kicking off the show first.
It's Jeremy. He's not here. He probably loves them.
Fuck you guys.
I just imagine he's sleeping right now and he's like twitching in his sleep like, fuck Stephen King.
He's sleeping right now. King. He can hear it in his head. He's going to wake up. He's dreaming this right now. And then he'll find out it's a reality. My number 7 comes from the year I was born. Yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah,
1968.
1983. You smartass. Yeah. All right, I've got some grays, but my balls aren't that gray yet. Directed by the late Tony Scott, brother of Ridley Scott. This is a lesbian vampire movie. Yeah, and we're talking about The Hunger. Have you seen this one?
I have.
Okay.
Yep.
So this one, which lends itself more on the end of style over substance, it's probably the sexiest vampire movie that has ever existed. It casts David Bowie, the great David Bowie. Like,
the late,
what is
David
more
Bowie.
perfect than, like, in terms of casting, than David Bowie as a vampire? Look at the motherfucker. He's a vampire. Yeah. He was definitely a vampire for real. I mean, someone put...
Well, I think he's more of a Goblin King, but
he's both. You can do both. But I remember this movie, you know, it obviously another movie that walks the line of the art house level of filmmaking, and it's a mesmerizing experience to just behold this thing. I don't even think you need to pay attention to much. Just watch it and let it become you. You know what I mean? Like, just let it happen to you. It's that kind of movie where I was just like, fucking, it grabbed me by the arm and pulled me in immediately. It's just really awesome. And also, you know, I'm just trying to walk around it, but no, I'll just get right to it. It's got Susan Sarandon totally nude in it. So, and she's fucking gorgeous in the movie. And it just, the cinematography, the music, it's just such a romantic movie in terms of being a vampire movie. And it's brutal at times as well. It got shit on really bad when it came out by critics for being so stylistic and not really having all that much substance. But for me, I think that's what makes it really special. And it is one of a kind in terms of, you know, the movies that have graced the horror genre that deal with these characters of vampires.
Yeah. Well, I think with vampire movies, like, maybe we're alone in this, but I don't think you need a lot of substance to it. Like, the vampire tale is pretty straightforward.
Very
so
true.
if you can bring your own twist to it and put your own influence and inspiration on it, and if that's an art house movie, that's great. If it's a typical vampire movie, cool. Like, as long as you have fun with it and give us a movie that's enjoyable, like, I don't need this Christopher Nolan-esque plot line of a vampire movie.
Well,
you know?
I don't think anyone would ever want that. But now that you just said that, I'm sure there's somebody out there trying to fucking make that movie right now. You know, it's just, I guess critics at the time didn't like 5-minute long nude scenes of like nipple licking and, you know, I'm all about that.
Well, then why are they watching a vampire film?
Exactly. So yeah, my number 7 is The Hunger. Another one that, again, if you have not seen it, it's not talked about nearly enough. Beautiful to look at if you just want something to experience. And yeah, this is the one for you. So moving on, we are getting down there to the nitty gritty. To your number 6.
Oh my God. All right. Number 6 for me is probably when I first realized that vampires could be really sexy.
Ooh.
And I'm talking about 2003's Underworld.
Oh shit. Okay.
With Kate Beckinsale, Scott Speedman.
In that sleek
like
black rubber.
Oh yeah. But I really, really like this because, like I said, I'm a huge werewolf fan. And this series was about the battle between vampires and werewolves, but not in like the old sense you think of where it's like swords and spears and daggers. It's like they have fucking automatic
this is definitely the Matrix
and
version of
bombs.
werewolves and vampires.
And that's the other thing. I watched this around the same time that I saw The Matrix, and I was like, these two films are like the same to me. But I love it. And that transformation at the end where Kate Beckinsale Celine bites Scott Speedman and makes him half vampire,
Isn't it
half
weird that
werewolf?
his name is Scott and he looks so much like Scott Stapp from Creed?
Yeah, that's probably why
That's
I
why
really
you
like
him.
him.
Yeah. You want to
that's
be
why I
him,
love him.
actually. You want to be just like him.
No, he wants to be me. He wants to be B-Ratty. I just really, really like this movie, and that's really all I have to say about it.
Yeah,
I think
I get
the black spandex.
It's
speaks
a
for
sexy
itself.
movie, stylistic in terms of its action. It's really enjoyable. It's a vampire popcorn flick. So, my next pick is a movie that I don't think Underworld could exist without because it was the precursor to that. But I debated on where I would put Underworld. It would probably be honorable mentions, which we will get to at the end of our lists here. But my number 6 is the first big Marvel film adaptation that hit, and it was about a vampire killer, half vampire, half human, that hunted down vampires and blew them into dust, played by then huge
Abraham Lincoln.
blockbuster star Wesley Snipes. And it made vampires cool and hip again before, way before Twilight walked in the door and ruined everything. Directed by Stephen Norrington. This movie is fantastic. Now, I know people are going to address it. I recently got the 4K Ultra HD, I think, like last year or something, and rewatched it. And it's a gorgeous looking movie. But yes, it's 1998. The budget wasn't the biggest, so some of the CGI, in terms of the vampires being shot and turning into dust, Doesn't look good, especially not in 4K on a 4K television. But all that aside, it has that charm from that period, and it is amazing. Wesley Snipes is a powerhouse in this movie and absolutely a presence throughout. And I think that it's a shame. I'm kind of excited for the new Blade movie, knowing that it's a Marvel Studios movie. I'm not, and that it's not going to be R. I'm kind of weary of it, but I would have loved to see, you know, Snipes return to the role once more and take it on again. And you can't talk about this movie without talking about Stephen Dorff, who is a brilliant villain in this fucking thing. He is terrifying. Oh, yeah. He's sexy. He's got literally everything, and he's a perfect 90s villain. He dresses well. He's got great hair. You know, it's like all of those elements that you want to have, and he's just like the modern style vampire. And I think it was a different take that we hadn't seen yet up until that point. And it's a great action movie. It's a great vampire movie. It deals with vampire lore in a way that we hadn't seen before, in terms of a movie in general, let alone a comic book movie. And it was this movie that really changed things forever, you know? So, yeah, that's going to be my number 6, Blade. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick promo break for the live stream for The Cure. And when we come back, we're going to be talking our top 5 vampire movies. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. I'm the host of Nikolai's Kitchen, and I'm also the host of the annual Live Stream for The Cure. Live Stream for The Cure is a charity event where we raise money with content creators and podcast partners from around the world for the Cancer Research Institute, a wonderful nonprofit researching cancer immunotherapy, training the body's immune system to fight all forms of cancer. This is a mission and a future that I truly believe in. And myself and my team worked tirelessly over the past 5 years to raise over $50,000 for this cause. This year, we're aiming for our biggest single goal to date of $20,000, and we cannot do it without your help. Please join us for the event May 19th through the 21st, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern, for 45 hours of content from people all over the world. Together, we can bring hope for a future immune to cancer. The more eyes we reach, the more dollars we raise. Please help us in making this goal a reality. Together, we can make a difference.
And we are back with our top 5 vampire films of all
time.
Top
5 vampire films. I wonder how many of our listeners are sick of that already. They're like, motherfucker, I was sick of it 5 minutes ago.
Well, fuck you. No, listen, okay? We're gonna keep doing it.
We just had to listen. The Count is like a legendary vampire, right? He's on Sesame Street. He taught us like math and shit, right? So
I still didn't do well at math.
I was terrible at math, but I'm just saying, you know, he's not in a movie, so we can't put him on a list or anything. This isn't like top 10 vampire characters. Maybe someday we'll do that, and he would most definitely be on that list. I mean, you can't. It's the Count, man.
I love the Count so much that I would get him tattooed on my body. I would too.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
The Count rules, man.
I could do that.
We just had to, you know, got to show some love to the Count.
We have to include him.
But yeah, we're there with the nitty gritty, the top 5. This is it here. So Brady, hopping back over to you. What is your number 5?
Number 5 for me is a 2010 remake by a little director named Matt Reeves. Called Let Me In. And first off, I want to say that like the cast is amazing. Richard Jenkins is a serial killer who looks like the fucking Riddler from the Batman. Chloe Grace Moretz and Dylan Minnette are great child actors in this movie. And what really got me about this is that it's not just a straight vampire film. It's more of a coming of age romantic horror film, I guess you could say, because this kid's getting bullied at school in New Mexico and his parents are neglecting him because they're getting a divorce and his mom's like a religious nut. Been there. And this family moves in next door, and he notices that the little girl only comes out to the playground where he is at night and doesn't wear shoes in the snow. And he's like, oh, that's fucking weird. But she's really standoffish. And then people start getting killed around there. And just like the scenes, man, I don't know. Like I rewatched it last night for the first time in a couple of years in prep for this episode. And Justin, I don't know when the last time you saw it was, but like some of those shots
theaters opening weekend.
of like of Richard Jenkins as the serial killer, like wrapped in that garbage bag, look just like the Riddler. It's like it could have been in Batman. And I even think that the guy who did the music is the same. Michael Giancarlo, is that his name?
Yeah.
Giacchino, it's the same person. And I love the movie. It's a big thing about vampire movies for me too, is the music. So when you think of like Underworld, it's like rave kind of music, like Matrix style. And then, but it goes with the vibe of the movie. Like it never takes you out of it. And this one, it's like the swelling scores. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like watching it last night was like watching it again for the first time. And I fucking love it. I just think it's great, especially the end scene. I'm going to spoil it, where our main character, Owen, is getting drowned by bullies. And Abby, the vampire, comes in and just mutilates them. But there's a scene where he's underwater and he hears it but can't see it. And a kid's like upper torso is dragged upside down through the water.
It's so amazing.
Dude, I was sitting there like, holy fuck, how did I not remember that? So I really love this one. I haven't seen the original. I know that's heresy. I need to watch it.
It definitely is, and you definitely need to. They're both great. And that's why I'll be straight up with you on this. It's not on my list because I like the original and the remake equally, so it wouldn't be fair to include one without the other, because the remake wouldn't exist without the original, and all that nonsense. But both of them are fantastic, and I did see Matt Reeves' film in the theater opening weekend and really fell in love with it. I thought it was fantastic. So great pick there. I'm not going to bitch at you for that one. So
I appreciate that. What about you? What's number 5? What's cracking the top 5?
Movie you already talked about that was criminally fucking low on your list. I'm talking about Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn from 1996. You said it perfectly. I mean, this movie starts out as something totally different. It's a heist movie. Follows a pair of American criminal brothers played by George Clooney and Tarantino himself in probably his best role. I mean, in terms of acting, Tarantino is fantastic in this movie. He just chews scenery with his own dialogue, and he's so good at it. They take a family hostage, Harvey Keitel and, of course, Juliette Lewis, in order to cross into Mexico, but ultimately find themselves trapped in a saloon, a really cool one that I'd love to go to, by the way. It's frequented by vampires. And when shit hits the fan, it goes absolutely bonkers, turns into a totally different kind of movie. And the end result is one of the most bloody, fun, and stylish fucking vampire movies ever. It's so much fun. I never get sick of watching this movie. It was like, I think last month, I came home from Terror Tuesday from hosting it. We did House of Wax last year, and I came home and Danielle was watching this, and it was like, I think the last 20 minutes of it. And I immediately sat down excited and just had to soak this up. It's just one of those movies where you can never watch it too many times. It never gets old. It's a blast from start to finish, and by far one of Rodriguez's best movies. I mean, any vampire flick, by the way, that has Danny Trejo as a vampire deserves to be in every top 5. So this movie is just a blast. Seriously, it's that rare occasion when two visionaries come together to make something they love. And this is the most horror thing that Tarantino has ever done. And he's a gigantic horror fan. So it's awesome to see that he was able to make this with Rodriguez behind the camera. It's a fantastic film. So that's my number 5, man.
Was it Halloween 6 that he was really interested in making?
He almost made Halloween 6. That's correct. Yeah. He's almost made like every fucking movie. when you hear about like, oh, Quentin Tarantino was going to make a Star Trek movie. Like it's just one of those stories where he has interest and he dabbles with the idea, but he's only going to make his own original movies. You know what I mean? So, which is great. He's one of the few film directors alive today that still has that opportunity. He's never done an IP. He's just done his own movies. So, this is, it's great to know that Tarantino had his hand in a vampire movie, and one of the best for sure. So, yeah, moving on to you for your number 4. Sorry.
I got a question for you. How are those maggots?
Really? Number 4? Are you serious?
Number 4 is The Lost Boys. You know, I came to it late, like I come to every fucking movie, but one, soundtrack is amazing. Title song, Cry Little Sister, love it. I listen to it all the fucking time. The saxophone guy, I'm gonna meet him in August because he's at a fucking tavern up here.
Is he playing?
So I've already got.
He's playing.
He's playing, and he's doing like a meet and greet.
He's amazing live. That's so cool, and he's still jacked too.
Yeah, oh yeah, he is. I'm gonna bring some baby oil and throw it on him. But I really, really, really enjoy this movie. You've got Corey Haim, Corey Feldman in their peak. I think that's amazing. The Frog Brothers are like everything that I wish that my cousins and I had been growing up, but we were homeschooled, and so we weren't that cool. We were just like out in the woods, like pretending to be fighting in World War II, whatever. We weren't actually fighting vampires. And I really, really like Kiefer Sutherland when he plays an evil role and he makes a fucking badass vampire. And like you said, the 80s for vampires, they would have just been having a heyday. And in this movie,
That's
they are.
true.
They're a group of young adult vampires, teenagers who are just wreaking havoc on this town, doing whatever they want, sleeping all day, partying all night. I really, really love it. And I know that for a lot of people, it's probably a little low on here, but it makes my top 5.
Yeah, no, I think I gotta give
if you give someone a top 5 list.
Honestly, anyone that doesn't have this on their top 10, I would be shocked. You know, I would feel like they were being a contrarian just for the sake of it, because it's so hard to dislike this movie. I mean, it's supernatural. There's a lot of black comedy in there as well. I'll definitely be talking about it a little bit more in a few minutes here.
Right.
But it is one of the best, and I think Joel Schumacher, he's really at his best here in terms of direction. He really just nailed something that it was the perfect mix for him as a director, his sensibilities, if you will. So yeah, this movie, another one that never gets old. But again, I'll be blabbing about it in a minute.
And then something else too, like a lot of times in vampire movies, I love the moments where the vampire turns somebody, or when you think of another movie that's going to come up, somebody inviting the vampire in. But one of the most terrifying moments in this movie is what I quoted, is when they bring Michael back to their lair and they're just playing mind games with him. And he's like eating Chinese food. And then David's like, oh no, they're maggots. How do they taste? And then he looks and he's like, relax. They're only noodles, right? He's just fucking with his mind the entire time, and it's imagery that has, like, once I've seen it, I can't unsee it. But yeah, it's number 4 for me.
Wonderful.
What about you?
No, it's a great pick, man. And it's a movie that is beloved by so many people and still appreciated. And it's got Corey fucking Feldman. Corey Feldman actually tried cocaine for the first time on that movie. Yeah, he's got some good stories about that. My number 4 comes from 1992. This is probably the biggest Terror Tuesday that I ever hosted. It was the biggest success for me. I'm pretty sure you were there. Directed by the legendary Francis Ford Coppola. This is Dracula. And in my opinion, this is the interpretation of Dracula, my personal favorite. Not saying it can't be beat. I just think no one has tried and succeeded yet. And with the title character played by the great Gary Oldman in one of his most iconic performances, this one is so amazing. You can't touch anything in this movie except for maybe, Keanu Reeves's English accent. But he does sport the best bowl cut ever in a movie. So, no, I'm not going to come on. His accent is terrible.
It's not great.
It's not good. It's terrible. It's beyond terrible. It's literally like, I get it. When he was cast, no one wanted him in that movie. And he was in the movie because he was a sexy star at the time, an up-and-comer. And it shows. He just either wasn't prepared or, he's a wonderful actor in a lot of other movies. Just don't try to get
I know
him
what
to
you're
do
saying.
an accent or anything. the movie is shot like a Bava film, or an Italian horror film rather, and Coppola like specifically wanted to do that visual look, and he also does every single special effect in camera for real. This was the beginning of the transition to doing computer generated imagery for special effects. Right before Jurassic Park, this was right after Terminator 2, and he didn't want to do any of that. He didn't want to do any of the stuff that was popular in the 80s either. Everything is makeup or done in camera for real, and it shows. The movie at times itself is a fever dream in terms of the visual sense that it has, and probably the most romantic version. No, definitely the most romantic version of Dracula we've ever seen put on film. And not only that, but the movie is scary as hell. There are some great jump scares in there. It's gothic. It's a little bit over the top, and at times there's some laughable scenes that occur. But I mean, it's just, I think this movie is close to being considered a masterpiece. I think it's just the best cinematic telling of the Dracula story. I've never even, I mean, you're more familiar with the actual literature than I am, but in terms of just how I view the character, I mean, it's bar none perfect. I just think it's a great movie.
No.
So yeah, my number 4 is
it's fantastic.
Dracula from 1992. Francis Ford Coppola. I have to put that above that because that's how, I just remember when the movie came out, everyone was getting it wrong. He's like, no, my name needs to be that. It's like John Carpenter's Vampires, but that movie sucks. So
yeah,
not talking about that. That was not on the list.
Come on, James Woods. Come on.
Nope.
All right. Wow.
Yeah,
really
we're right
getting
there,
in there,
man. So we're on to your number 3. Holy shit, man.
All right. Number 3 for me. It's from 1987. It's more of a neo-Western horror, if you will, from Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, we
starring
might
Bill
as well
Paxton.
Both talk about this one at the same time together because this is my
Is this your
number 3
too?
Yeah.
Near Dark. I think that it's one of probably the most overlooked vampire movies. One, it's really hard to get it, I think. And then, well, now it's on Shudder, but beforehand. And two, it comes out in the time when you have vampires are just booming, those 80s vampire movies. So I think it did get overshadowed. But
right around the same time as The Lost Boys. Same year.
Yeah. And I don't think the movie is necessarily scary, but it's extremely violent and gory, and the entire scene at the end in the bar, the confrontation, is so tense and disturbing that it's just crazy. Like when you think of it, it's like you're looking at them, you're like, yeah, I guess this is how vampires would be. It's almost like a precursor to From Dusk Till Dawn,
a little
if you
bit,
think about it. Same hostage situation. You got this family, so I don't know. I really, really love it. What do you think of it?
It's at my number 3, so what do you think I think of it, B-Ratty?
I think you hate it.
And very true.
I think you shit on it.
To your point there, in terms of its availability, when Twilight came out, they issued a Blu-ray of it that has been out of print since then. And if you look at it, it's the most hilarious cover art ever because they tried to make Near Dark look like a sexy Twilight teen vampire flick.
It's the same one that's on Shudder right now.
That image, they're using that right now on Shudder. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, and for the longest time, like when they first put it on there, that's how I watched it. I was like, this is not the movie that everybody's talking about. This can't be, just by looking at the art.
Shudder should know better. God damn it. Unless they're trolling people on purpose to fuck with them. But so I don't own this. I showed it to Loy Sauce a few years ago. We watched it and we're just astounded by how fantastic the movie is. Exactly what you were saying. And it's a Western, man. Catherine Bigelow and her co-writer Eric Red were trying to find financial backing for a budget for a Western movie. They had a hard time with it. So it was suggested to them by the studio, they try mixing a Western and another more popular genre. What's more financially viable in the late 80s than horror? So her interest in revisionist interpretation of cinematic tradition, it led her to, let's make a vampire Western. And, this far before John Carpenter attempted and failed at doing this same thing, Catherine Bigelow succeeded in a movie that did not do very well with audiences. It did not become a box office success, but critics liked it. And I just think going back to that bar scene, I think it's the most memorable scene. And Bill Paxton, fucking God rest his soul. What a talent, man. Always a great character actor. And in this movie, just literally, his presence is so appreciated. He is amazing. All bloody with the sunglasses on. He was so diverse in terms of an actor. He could be the good guy. He could be like a straight-laced fucking dad, and then the next minute he's this brutal, hateful, vicious vampire. It was just absolutely fantastic. And this movie looks gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. It's just untouchable in terms of its originality and how different it is. So
I think for this movie too, what really works for it and that the director really nailed was that you don't necessarily need to show the vampire's fangs so much to make them scary or intimidating, right? It's more of their need for blood, because that's what most of this movie is centered around. It's not like they're just going around like biting people and turning them into vampires. They need blood to survive. And that's, when you get down to it, is terrifying, because then it just turns into a Western serial killer movie, right? Where they're just picking people up and killing them because they need blood.
It goes back to the animalistic nature of a vampire, and really it's just their need for blood, for them to exist, for them to retain that eternal life. They're a bunch of nomads just out there trying to, remain in existence. And I think it's just a very original take. Again, very different from The Lost Boys that came out the same year, and very different from the majority of vampire movies that came before it. And I think that's why it just didn't connect with audiences in that way, and it's a very unfortunate. But I've been told that this is getting a 4K Ultra HD release, so I'm just been patiently waiting for that moment, because I know it's going to be a big deal. And I know if you're listening to this show, you're a horror fan, so you already know this movie, you already know its legacy. There's nothing else we can say that you don't already know, but this movie is a classic. It's one of the best vampire movies ever made, so that's my number 3 and your number 3. So we got to move right on, Brady, to your number 2.
Number 2 has already been talked about on this episode, and it is 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula. You already talked about it.
No, I don't. You're looking at me like I forgot that I just talked about.
No. I don't think that there's a lot. I don't think there's a lot that I can say that you didn't already say. I mean, when I think of this movie, I think of the opening scene where Gary Oldman's Dracula is turning into a vampire, right? And he's fighting, and that imagery of his armor and the chanting music. It's just like, it's very terrifying to me. Yeah. And it just pulls you into the movie, and it just never stops. And it's got Winona Ryder in it. It's got Keanu. It's got Anthony Hopkins. It's a great fucking cast. And like you said, I think that it sticks very true to the original story from the 1800s. And when I think of Dracula, yes, Bela Lugosi is great. And I don't think that he can really be touched, but he didn't make it onto this list because I think that Gary Oldman does a better job of showing what Dracula is. And I get it's different times. It's, decades ahead. We don't have to get into all of that. But if I'm showing somebody a movie or I want to watch a Dracula movie, I would pick this one over the 1931
and also,
every time.
To your point there, I think that it's the most entertaining of them as well. It's the most enjoyable to watch visually, and it's the most entertaining. It's got that poppy feel to it, but it's still grounded in that world so deeply of the mythology. It works well in both ways. So as an entertaining blockbuster and as a serious take on the material, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and a funny story is I did see it at your Terror Tuesday.
Yeah, you came for that.
I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I brought my sister-in-law, and she had never seen it before.
Ooh, how did that go?
So I was telling her the entire time, I was like, this is a great movie. It's probably my favorite Dracula movie. You're going to love it. And then we got there and I completely forgot the sex scenes in it with the wolf. And so halfway through she was like, this is your favorite movie, huh? Bestiality. I was like, all right,
dude,
come on now. But she loved it. She loves Gary Oldman.
Is still one of my favorite movie creature designs ever.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Just love it. when I think about this movie, and I hate to be like old guy yelling from his porch again, but they just don't make movies like this anymore. If they made this movie now,
No.
the backgrounds would be all green screen. The settings would be all CGI. They wouldn't even build sets for real. I mean, the insides of the castles in this, and just it's so beautiful to look at. The costuming here and the makeup, it's got the total package. And some people have claimed that this movie has a not tongue in cheek, but kind of a hammy factor to it. That's fine, because at times it needs to be a little light in order to reflect the dark. And I think it has everything. So it's,
And I think that the love story between Dracula and Mina Harker is superb here. Like, I think that you don't want to root for it because, you know, you have Keanu's Jonathan, who is supposed to be betrothed to Winona's.
He's a fucking wet paper towel, man.
But then that's the thing. It's Gary Oldman does such a great job as Dracula, and they're just drawn to each other. And on screen, they have such a great chemistry that they show that throughout the whole movie. Like, she's in this trance, but so is he.
I'll never forget. So for Terror Tuesday, for our listeners that have never been able to come to one, because I know you're all over the world, it is the monthly horror film club that I have at Alamo Drafthouse, DC area in Ashburn. We show movies on the big screen and people come out and have a blast. But I always make sure to give our audience members, I design a pin, like a little pin you can put on your jean or leather jacket or whatever, or your backpack. And for this one, I had an argument with Loisos about what image to use. He's like, no, you got to use Gary Oldman as Dracula. And I put an image of Keanu Reeves with his bowl cut. And I thought people would love that. And I was right. People were like, oh my God, a Keanu pin. And I made sure in my intro to mention, to reflect on how amazing that bowl cut was. It's just a memory that I'll always remember. It was just absolutely fantastic. So, all right, sweet, man. All right, so
number
two. And you had already talked about this one. It is Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys from 1987, the stylish coming-of-age vampire story jammed with vampirism as a metaphor for the trials and tribulations of teenage angst. It's just... this is a perfect movie, and Kiefer Sutherland's David is delicious. You could just eat him right up. I mean, this movie, I'd love at some point on the show to do a full retrospective on it, but nothing really says the perfect vampire movie, B-Ratty, more than Tim Capello, all oiled up, jacked to the bone, and playing the saxophone like it's the equivalent of sexual intercourse.
We still believe.
Great song. You were totally right in saying the score is great, but the soundtrack itself, to die for. And the movie's climax is the most fun, and overall, it balances comedy and some of the most terrifying horror imagery from the era ever. The cast is fantastic. Like we said earlier, Corey Haim, in my favorite role of his. He's just perfect in this movie. And Corey Feldman, who, yes, tried cocaine for the first time on the set of this and got fired for doing so, and then immediately rehired because the reason he did cocaine is because his mom was not watching him like she was supposed to, and she was at like the local bar getting hammered and shit. So it's interesting story.
It happens.
And he talked about that whole thing on Steve-O's podcast. So check that out if you listen to Steve-O's podcast. Steve-O from Jackass, that is, for the uninitiated. But I mean, I'm off on a tangent. This movie I remember seeing it as a teenager and it really just connecting with me. And I think it's got a youthful energy to it. And it's sexy, it's stylish, it's definitely pure 80s. But he takes the material very seriously. And because I know a lot of people later on try to claim that Joel Schumacher was not a serious filmmaker. He made a lot of great fucking movies, and this is one of them. So, 100%. This is one of the best vampire movies ever made. It's one of the most enjoyable. It's one of the most talked about. It's a cult classic, and it was a huge financial success when it came out. And I've seen it on the big screen twice. Definitely one that if you ever get the opportunity to take the advantage of that and Go watch it on the big screen. And I'm pretty sure it is this year, because I have it pre-ordered somewhere, or it was, a brand new 4K Ultra HD release of this is coming as well. So, and I'm super excited for that. So, yes, my number 2 is The Lost Boys.
Are we about to have the same number 1?
I'm pretty sure we are. Did you just, like, drop something because you're so crazed about this idea?
Yeah, I just can't even contain myself.
I had a feeling. But I know you love this movie.
Do you want to, like...
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you want to count down and say it at the same time and see if it's the same one?
I was just going to say... Welcome to Fright Night. For real.
Yep. Oh my fucking God, this movie.
Oh,
it's so
you're
fucking
so
good.
Cool, Brewster.
I showed my wife that movie this past year. Actually, no, it was last Halloween. Because my wife hates horror, and she was like, if you want to watch a horror movie tonight, we can. And I said, okay. So I texted Justin, and I said, hey, oh my God, Paige just said she's going to watch a horror movie. And I'm thinking of showing her Fright Night or Lost Boys. And he was like, I don't think she's going to like either one of those, but I'd go with Fright Night. And so we did. And she was like, I hate that fucking Evil Ed character.
Aww.
And I was like, come on, man. He's a porn star now. Or he used to be. Anyways. This movie has great fucking score. Like, I think it puts Lost Boys to shame.
The score by Brad Fiedel, who is known for the Terminator score, Terminator 2. It's an amazing score.
Come to Me. What is it? Dream Window. It's, oh my God. And Christopher Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge is by far the sexiest vampire.
Oh yeah. You can't compare. He's charismatic, likable, sexy, but when the transformation hits, he's what nightmares are made of, man. He is a monster, like a beast, a creature from the depths of hell. It's a great transition when it happens. But this movie, Brady, and I know some people are going to be like, really overwritten. It's not. Like, this movie has everything, literally everything. It's funny. It's scary. It's poppy, if you will. A horny teenage boy sees what he thinks is foul play and deciding to inspect the situation, finds out that a vampire has moved in next door. I mean, dude, the idea that this kid actually gives up the chance to get laid just to catch a glimpse of what's going on outside of his window. Now that's dedication to horror, if there is any. It's just fantastic. And it also balances that teen comedy with the horror. I mean, and this came at a time in 1985. This is 2 years pre-Lost Boys. This is the movie that really got the vampire genre back up on its feet, out of the coffin and from the dead, if you will. It just that it had been considered old hat up until that point.
It's also just like a love letter in parts to like the 50s and 60s Hammer films with Peter Vincent. It's like, I don't know. It's every good thing about a vampire movie rolled up into one 80s flick. And I can watch it over and over and over. And we met Christopher Sarandon. That was fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
we didn't get to meet Freddie Prinze Jr. That's all right.
Well, I got a picture
eventually.
That he was standing there. But, it's funny because I was just, at Terror Tuesday last night at our screening of Tenebrae, talking with our good friend Corey, who's a listener of the show. Huge fan of Terror Tuesday, comes out all the time. We love you, Corey, if you're listening. We were talking about how Fright Night is that cinematic equivalent of comfort food. It's a comfort flick. You can watch it anytime. And I mention it all the time that if there's a movie that I need to watch to make myself feel better in the horror genre, it's almost always Fright Night, because the movie always brightens my spirits. The pairing of William Ragsdale's Charlie Brewster and Roddy McDowall's Peter Vincent was a match made in Hollywood heaven. Roddy McDowall is just so lovable in this movie. I just in hearing the stories about him being on the set from director Tom Holland, I wish that I was an adult during that time period. I could have done something more to experience it in the way that it was meant to. But when I screened this for Terror Tuesday, with our return, post COVID, it was a blast. And seeing it in a crowded theater with a bunch of people was just so amazing. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, let alone just horror movies or vampire movies. So there should be no surprise here that this is my number one. I just really, everything about this movie is me. The score, the look of it, the characters, the tone of it is just, it's the perfect blend. I mean, really. So you got a scary vampire who's just so charismatic. And of course, it has that fucking nightclub scene. And ever since that movie, I saw that movie for the first time, I've been like obsessed with 80s nightclubs. And I just wish that there was some that still existed untouched so I could visit them. But they don't anymore. Everyone ruined them in the 90s.
Yeah. Way to go, 90s, when I was born.
But yeah, and Stephen Jeffries as Evil Ed 2, chewing scenery. And you actually feel for him in the movie too. You get emotional. His transformation when he turns is great. You feel sad for him.
When Jerry Dandridge is like following him down the alley with, again, the great music by Brad Fiedel, and he is like evil scared, and he's like, I'm gonna die, and Jerry's like, no, I can help you. Like, I can help you not be made fun of anymore. And it's like, that's the allure of being a vampire, is being different and having power. It's all about having power over the people who wronged you in this movie.
Yeah, and he revels in it too. He absolutely soaks it up, and just when he turns, he's fan-fucking-tastic. When he's in the bed with the Raggedy Ann hair and his eyes are all fucking red, and he's got the huge fangs. It's just, the movie has so many iconic scenes, and it's got, the shark mouth at the end with Amanda Bierce. That was a prop done last minute randomly, which no one thought was going to look good. And it ended up being the most memorable thing in the movie visually. And it was on the fucking poster because of it. I could talk about this movie forever. And another one that I'd like to revisit, myself and the good old Loy Sauce, the god of podcasting, did a B-side on it on EFG Original a couple years back for the anniversary of the film. So go check that out. It's a real deep dive into the movie. It's definitely a love fest because, listen, if you hate Fright Night, you hate life. The movie is just pure joy. What are you going to say, So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's both of our number ones. And we did not plan this. I never look at his list. He doesn't look at my list. If he did, he'd get spanked for it pre-show. So this was all live, and I think we need to really quickly jump into any honorable mentions that we had. I know there's so many vampire movies, so I know I have a few, but Brady, I'll throw it to you first for your honorable mentions. Yeah,
I know you might not count this one. I didn't put it on my list because I don't count it as a movie. It's a TV miniseries, Salem's Lot, Tobe Hooper. I think that's a great fucking vampire movie.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear that on your list, so I was shocked that it wasn't on there, but you categorized it properly.
Well, it's a miniseries, I think that's fantastic. Interview with a Vampire, 1994,
dude,
is also really good.
I'm glad you enjoy it, because when I was doing this list, I just revisited it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Nah.
Not a fan?
I appreciate it, but man, it's a drag to watch. It really is.
Yeah, I get that. Blade's really good. I prefer Blade 2.
Blade 2 is amazing.
If I'm being
honest.
honest.
Just celebrated its 20th anniversary.
And then there's another one called Only Lovers Left Alive from 2014 with Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston. Have you seen that?
I've never seen it. It's been on my list for a long time.
I would definitely check it out. Yeah, that's what I got for honorable mentions. Like you said, I could keep going with this list. Yeah, but no, I would just try to whittle it down.
And so my honorable mentions, one that you had on your list that I really wanted to have on here, but in terms of, trying to give some diversity to the list, I changed it up a little bit. So the next one in the list would be 30 Days of Night, which I really, really enjoyed. You had already talked about it, and Let the Right One In. What We Do in the Shadows, even though I prefer the show to the movie's great. It really is. But the show is one of my favorite shows ever created. I just think it's superior in every way to the movie, but I had to put that on there as well, honorable mentions. And Dracula from 1958, the first Hammer entry with Christopher Lee, that's the best of his, and I really like that one a lot. And going to the one that started it all from 1922, the silent film Nosferatu, absolutely creepy. And the imagery in that movie is what set the tone, the bar, the standard for horror movies. And ever since, We've never looked back. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, our top 10 vampire movies. Comment below on this post and tell us what yours are. I know I'm going to see a lot of Lost Boys. I know I'm going to see a lot of Dracula. And I better fucking see a lot of Fright Night.
It better be out there.
Because like usually on like social media polls and stuff, when people put Fright Night in the conversation, it usually gets shit on in terms of the people that are actually voting for it or, vouching for it. And it really pisses me off. I know that film is subjective. That's my trademark line, of course. But, it's watch it again. That's what I'm going to say. Go watch it again. Buy it. Appreciate it. I know Tom Holland, the director, appreciates that. But that's it for this episode of Brain Stew. We want to thank you again for listening this week. And Brady, if they like what they're hearing, tell them where they can find us.
Oh my God, it's so hard to follow Jeremy. I can't do any voices, okay? But you can go to Spotify. It's super easy. You just go to the main page for Epic Film Guys, and you hit the stars. You can give us 4 stars would be preferred. I think that's the most you can do, 4.9, I think, on Spotify. If you want to give us 1 star, that's cool too. We'll take it. Same thing with Apple Music. Justin, where else are we on that you can rate and review? I just have those two.
I'm pretty sure that's the only 2. Those are the only 2 places, actually. But you can find us, though, literally on social media, at Epic Film Guys, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're literally, if you search the name Brain Stew and the name Epic Film Guys on Google, you'll find a ton of places to find us. So check us out there. But listen, we missed you, Jeremy, this week. We loved ribbing on you, though, as well. So we'll take that opportunity any chance we get, baby. But so until next week, I'm Justin.
I'm B-Ratty.
As always, we like to ask you to keep it creepy. Bristow!